Hey everybody, Nick here. Welcome back to the channel. Today's video is a request by one of my viewers, and basically the topic is the comfort of the rich depends on the abundance of the poor. So there was a quote by a French writer, and I think he was an advocate or some sort of maybe a poet as well. Voltaire, and basically he also says the comfort of the rich depends upon the abundant supply of the poor. That's his quote, and it is a philosophical observation that suggests the rich benefit from the poor's labor. This is very true in many ways, and has been going on probably since the beginning of civilization. Now, there's always been someone at the top, even hundreds of years ago, and those would be kings. You had kings, emperors, sultans, you name it. All of these big, exalted people who put themselves up high, and the people went along with it. I always thought, how did these people get there? Like, how did this begin? It probably started in like some group of people and just like, let's pick this guy or let's pick this guy, and they went with it. I don't know. Or somebody who decided to make themselves the ruler and was stronger than everybody else or had the most allies, so they were able to get to the top. It's very interesting how that all began. But the point of this video is to talk about how all of us are the ones propping up the very rich, the very wealthy. It's so obvious. I mean, it's everywhere you look worldwide. Every country has its super rich and powerful, which generally a lot of rich people end up getting into powerful positions, even in politics. I mean, you can look at America. Trump is just another one of these guys. Whether you like him or hate him or whatever, it's not about that. But it just shows that the money goes hand in hand with the power and the politics, and it's just ridiculous because we are literally all the ones who are producing this. Now, if you look back hundreds of years ago or thousands of years ago, the very wealthy forced the poor into labor. They had to work, build everything for low to nothing, low income to nothing. They would receive pittance, maybe some food, and that's just how humanity was. Even back then, they would essentially be born into a specific race or tribe or whatever, and depending on where it was in the world, you're basically born into bondage, captivity. You're essentially an animal, and it's not even just black people in Africa that went through that. It's many different tribes and cultures throughout the world. And they were the ones that propped up these empires, who had to be serfs, essentially. Yet today, no one really thinks about it that way, because everyone seems to think that there's fairness and laws that protect people, there's human rights. Okay, yes, you won't find too many countries, especially in the West, where you have no workers' rights. You are basically earning a very low wage. And sure, the wages that are paid today, depending on the job, are becoming less livable because of cost of living. Everything is going up, and that's a given. But if you didn't have all these labor laws and things, imagine what your boss could do to you. They could kick you, they could not pay you. Sure, there are still countries that have that. Look at China. They have hundreds of millions of people who are forced into labor camps or working in sweatshops for Western companies, even Chinese companies, yes, Chinese companies, but a lot of Western companies. Western companies put their factories there, for example, like Adidas or Nike or whatever, and these little kids are getting paid like nothing, cents only, cents on the dollar. And all for what? For these CEO fat cats? Again, they are like the modern day emperors who depend on the poor's labor to keep it going. You know, without those people who are willing to do anything for even just for crumbs, that whole factory, I mean, not necessarily would it go down or they would stop producing, because they could probably find, there's always someone who's willing to work for nothing, unfortunately, and that's why, like they say in China, there's never a shortage of labor. Even India, I think would be the same thing. Like, you know, they have over 1 billion people each country. So that is never going to stop. I mean, it's no coincidence that's why the factories are in those countries. Or Thailand, Indonesia, same thing. Those four are, I mean, if you ever look at, if you own something that's like a brand name, you'll see made in Thailand, made in Taiwan, made in Indonesia, made in China, made in India, made in Pakistan. That's another one, sadly. So it's all possible because of these people who live in a very, very precarious situation, very terrible, poor situation. Not enough, I mean, it's terrible, the conditions of those countries. The inequality is just through the roof. I mean, you could talk about my adopted country of Brazil. It's almost the same thing. Not quite as bad as I would say India and many of those other countries that I mentioned, but it's pretty much, it's right there. So many things depend on these people. The rich, very wealthy people who own these companies. I could use another example. Apple, or I don't know if Samsung, I would guess any of these companies that are electronics or brand names, anything brand names, are going to look for cheap labor, because the owners of those companies, they need to pay as little as possible to maximize their profits, which, I mean, in this world is disgusting when it comes to inequality. And I don't have to tell you, because I know a lot of my viewers know how it is. And everyone just turns the other cheek, especially those in the West, because let's be honest, we are part of the problem, including myself. You know, I admit that. But I try not to buy brand name shit, or I'll do research before I buy any of that stuff, because I don't want to contribute to that. I don't want to be a contributor to misery and all that stuff. I've heard someone also say, well, if they don't have those jobs, they won't have anything. Oh, come on. You're going to make them work like 14 hours or whatever the hell it is, and give them like 5 cents or $1 a day or whatever the hell ridiculously low pay that it is, when they'd rather have nothing. You think that that's the better option? Like, that's, anytime someone says that kind of response, it's just like, really, you need to give your head a shake. So the other part of the equation is us. We're contributing by buying the products, which basically we're voting to say, we allow you to enslave these people, very poor people, to continue to exploit them and enrich yourselves out of your products that isn't even worth the amount that we're paying for. Like, you think an iPhone is worth $1,200? Like, how much do you actually think it's worth? Like, and I won't, look, I feel bad, I have one. But I mean, I use it as a tool. I'm not obsessed with it. I'm not buying another phone for years. It is ridiculous. I'm calling it out for what it is. Yes, okay, you can call me somewhat of a hypocrite, but I recognize that. The last phone I had before this was a Samsung, and it was like an old model. It's not like I buy the new phone every day. Not justifying it. Yeah, sure, I am part of the problem. But then there's those people who buy a phone every year. There's people who buy only brand name shit, which I do not. I own like old Nike shirts from years ago, but I haven't bought anything like that in ages. Not trying to justify myself. So we are part of the problem. The West is part of the problem. Whether you're in America, Canada, the UK, Western Europe, whatever. We are a big part of the problem. We are enriching these people and allowing them to, we're essentially saying we're okay with it. Which is the other thing. I mean, sure, those people are really, really poor and they're working in those conditions. But you have to keep in mind, we are also not rich. We are poor. It does not matter if you make $60,000 a year, $100,000 a year, if you still have to pay bills, if you're still in debt somewhat, if you're paying a mortgage, if you're constantly buying a new phone every year and a slave to consumerism, you're not rich. The super rich, the rich that I'm talking about that depend on the poor, are indeed well off and do not have to worry about that stuff. When they've got enough money that they can couldn't spend in 5 lifetimes, you know, it's amazing, you know. It reminds me of ancient Egypt. Now I'll touch on that again. When the Israelites were released, and this is whether you believe in the Bible story or not, but apparently it's in the hieroglyphics, building their temples and things like that. What happened to the Egyptians when they rose up? Ancient Egypt failed because they didn't have the serfs or the slaves to keep propping them up. And that's the only way to stop these people from exploiting others. Is just everyone collectively saying no, you know, giving a collective middle finger. So long as everyone just keeps going along with the status quo system and the very poor keep accepting these jobs, and I get it. I mean, I couldn't tell you how how it would be because I've never been in that position. But I've been in the 9-to-5 job, so it is a less bad of a situation, you know, the system in which North America runs on, the rat race system, but it still has parallel similarities. So it's not like we're fully free from being slaves ourselves, which props up these fat cats from, you know, for their comfort, their comfortable lifestyles. It's just, that's the way it is in this world. The monetary system is also the problem, and we're taught that you got to work and get this money, and it's all really a vicious circle with contributing factors. So yes, indeed, the poor, and they want people to continually be poor. Otherwise, they won't have people to do their dirty work for them in order to, you know, maximize their profits and continually to grow off the backs of these people. Yeah, I don't know what else I can say about that except that it is a tragedy, but it's also a reality. And it's just, it's unbelievable how many of these people are like, you see their net worth of like 2.8 billion or 100 billion. And it's like, what the hell are you going to do with all that money? It's mind-boggling to me. I guess for more power, more control. Not over just those that work for them and suffer, making nothing, but also us as the ones that think that we're doing all right in life. Yeah, right. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching. Let me know what you think. Do Do you think there'll always be that group of people, you know, the very poor, willing to do these jobs? Or do you think there'll be a moment where everyone would just say, screw this, we're not doing it anymore? And that's probably why they tell people to keep having kids, because they need the factory to keep rolling out more and more slaves. Otherwise, they lose their empires. So that's my 2 cents on that. Yeah, leave a comment, and we'll see you in the next video very soon. Bye for now.